Hi, and welcome to Hypothetically Intentional, where we ask the question, what if we set intentions with everything we do? I'm your host, Michelle Albers. Today I have Asha Boggs back with us today. Welcome, Asha.
Hi,
Good to see you.
good to see you.
I'm going to set an intention before we start, and then we can just deep dive right in as we tend to do.
Sounds good.
So, my intention, based on what we've been talking about in the recent, like just recently, I think my intention is to be, I want to explore. I want to explore the puzzle pieces that are healing, the puzzle pieces that are modalities that could potentially help us and ways that we can support ourselves and each other in healing. So I think exploration is maybe the main word that's just coming into my being right now. How does that feel for you?
I think that's good. Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of puzzle pieces that
Yeah.
need or can fit together, and finding the right ones, I think is important.
Yeah, I find it a little fascinating and maybe a little ironic and maybe a little bit like funny, not funny that I feel like we all came here with our own box filled with puzzle pieces and some of them actually aren't ours. And you know what I mean? Some people have like a four-piece puzzle and some people have like a 12,000 piece puzzle. And it's like,
Right.
I don't know. I feel like I've ebbed and flowed in trying so many different things. And the thing is like, I found things that worked, but like the things that used to work don't necessarily work today. And it's ever evolving is my point. And I just find that funny.
Yeah, it's definitely
And
evolving.
probably good, I guess. I mean, if the same thing worked all the time, what work would there be to do? Because you would just, do those things.
True.
So you and I, when we drop into conversations, we often talk about two specific pieces. One, like the therapy lane, which is you and your
Mhm.
career and how you show up in the world and a lot of your life experience. And then for me, it's the intuitive spirituality, um, going within from that perspective of I'm connecting to something higher than myself.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and just like I've been thinking a lot lately, just about I guess, intersectionality of all of that, and like how it's not just one or the other, and
Mm.
how do like when you're talking about healing with people, how do you bring both of those together? And it's kind of like this. I feel like when you're in school, at least for I went to school for social work, and that piece of it isn't like your piece of it isn't talked about. It's really the therapy piece, it's the advocacy, it's all those pieces that are feel more concrete and are like you learn the interventions, you learn the different modalities of therapy and things, and you pick kind of where you land as a therapist. And then but now that I've been doing the work and also just doing some trainings recently that have, I don't know that they've necessarily shifted my belief, because I think I've always had this belief that there's something missing. I think we talked about that in the last podcast about how like I switched from therapy to coaching, and just like how like that felt like a missing piece for me.
You
And
mean
that's
in your
been,
personal life, not in your
yeah,
career.
you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah. And so just kind of like thinking about that from the perspective of a therapist, and like when we talk about healing with our clients and healing from trauma and things, you have to look at the whole person. And how do you do that if you're only looking at the intellectual, the brain, the like, yes, we bring in somatic pieces of it, but there's more than one way to heal. And I feel like there's not just one thing that's going to do it. Like there's multiple different things. And sometimes I think people get stuck in like, okay, well, if I go do EMDR, then all my trauma is going to go away, and I'm going to be fine. And that may not be the case. And so how do we, I don't know, just like think about it in a different way. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about lately.
Well, and as you were talking about like I mean, I guess I would describe it as like the lanes of therapy. Like, right, there's a lot of
hmm
different modalities within therapy itself. Yes. And there's a lot of different types, forms, kinds of spirituality as well. And so to like meet people where they're at. And I'm always, when I first really I think I'm going to use the word accepted. When I first accepted my intuition and my spirituality and the fact that it wasn't like it didn't feel like it did when I was growing up. It felt like I finally got to the place where I made it mine and it became me, right? A part of
Mhm.
me and a piece that I could connect to. I got really hung up on, I don't know what words to use
Yeah.
because words that used to feel safe to me didn't necessarily feel safe anymore. And now I'm kind of circled back where all of them feel safe. It's like I just don't know how to put a word to something that doesn't feel like it has language to it necessarily. It's more of a feeling or a knowing than it is a language to me.
Hmm.
Um, but I think, within therapy and within spirituality and intuition, like that connecting to something higher than yourself from my lane or world is it's like how do you put language to that and how do we discern which puzzle pieces of those like lanes are for us for our own personal alchemy, for our own
Yeah.
personal like way that we heal. And I think I don't know, like in therapy, and this is maybe a question I have, like when you go to school for to become a therapist, do you learn about a lot of different like lanes or options within modalities in therapy, and then you just kind of land in the one that resonates with you the most, or how does that work?
I think it varies on what kind of like schooling you get. So like with social work, it's more of like an advocacy lens. You look at it from just the whole person and then how the person functions in within, society. And like so there's lots of different like I don't know if layers is the right word, but there's just a lot of different components that you look at. So um like they touch on therapy, but they also touch on like advocacy and like the human rights and just like
Mm,
who you are as like just a human. Um, and so which is kind of different from psychology, whereas I mean, I guess I'm not a psychologist, so I can't speak to that, but like it feels like it's more focused on like, here's your therapy modalities, you're gonna learn them, you're gonna try them. And social work, you can go a couple different ways. I chose the clinical route. And so like they touch on it, like you don't get fully trained in any one thing in grad school. You kind of like you get introduced to things and then you kind of your training is really done once you're graduated and you kind of pick and choose what trainings you want to do if you want to get formally trained in therapy interventions. But like we learn them all. Like, we learn DBT, we learn cognitive behavioral therapy, we learn like, I've been taught trauma therapy, like just different like things. Like I don't have like a form, like I'm not EMDR trained or I'm not ART trained. But yeah, you touch on ways that you work with um, clients. But it's in your internship, it's in your like pre-licensed like experience that you really dive into that more. And for me, like I had a really good internship and I had kind of I'm in my pre-license, I'm almost done with my pre-licensed phase. And I've had really, really good mentors and really, really I have really great supervisor that has taught me a ton. And that's where most of my and my own personal experience too comes into some of the stuff that I've learned and that I use in therapy. But as far as like being taught, like that's where I've learned a lot of my stuff. I am currently getting trained in anchored relational therapy. It's a model and it's kind of all encompassing. It's is built to work with clients who have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's really a framework for therapy too. Like you can kind of make it. Um, what I'm learning so far is like it's really just a framework for how you show up with your clients and see them and work with them. So I'm excited about that piece. But um, one thing that I feel like we've just started talking about, and it's kind of really cool because I just went to Kente Circle does a conference every year, and this is the second year that I've gone. And I went, oh gosh, it was like 2 weeks ago, I think now. And then our second day is tomorrow, actually.
oh,
But
cool.
having that was just like an eye-opening experience for me because they were talking about the whole person, not just like therapy, and like we talk about holistic healing, and I feel like when people say holistic healing, they think like kind of that like woo stuff and like the stuff outside the box, not necessarily traditional therapy. But they were kind of talking about like there's sound therapy, there's all these other different things that you can do to heal, that it's not just talk therapy. It's not just going and sitting across from someone and, you know, having to process your trauma and like learning that and like the research is showing now too that talking about trauma is not necessarily the way to heal it, that you don't necessarily have to process it, because it does, like we hold it in our bodies and we have to get it out of our bodies. Like there's a lot of research on the vagus nerve, and I'm actually going to be doing a thing at the summit on the vagus nerve on the 11th. So I'm excited about that, to kind of dive more into that and how it's connected to trauma and how trauma lives in our bodies. Um, and yeah, like it was just really cool at this um, like conference. They were just talking about like how do we show up with our clients and, you know, allow them to explore their identity and be authentic and bring in some of that like ancestral healing practices that we have, that we all have from our ancestors. And, you know, how do we incorporate that into a therapy when we're supposed to, you know, we have all these like interventions that you're supposed to use. Like I kind of roll my eyes when I say that, but I mean, but you have like this framework and like how, and they, I feel like that doesn't ever get talked about. But if you're really looking at healing the whole person, you do have to look at the spiritual piece. You do have to look at what, I don't know, just like what the person believes. And if there's, they are connected to a higher power, whatever, however they, whatever wording they use, or their ancestors, and like how important that is in healing. So yeah, that's kind of, sorry, I feel like I'm just rambling about that, but that's
No,
kind of like
I
where I'm, where my like, I don't know if it's passion, but it just like ignited something in me of like, oh, this like this is the missing piece of therapy, and like how do we interconnect those and really truly help people heal from a whole person perspective.
Yeah, and finding their way because
Mm.
I think there's a lot of different modalities and within those there's unique pieces in all of them that you can find, well, I don't want to say it in all of them. I'm not saying every modality is for every person, but I'm saying we all have our own unique makeup and our own unique, like our uniqueness of that, of finding things that work for us. And I
Right.
feel like, you know, back when I started Choose Yourself, I always knew that I wanted not therapy, but to have a therapist in the room to help with psychoeducation was going to be important because I don't have that training. I mean, my degree is in child psychology, but I was never a therapist. I taught preschool. I didn't use that degree, and I just knew, and I knew it intuitively, right? This isn't like
Mhm.
I just knew intuitively that we were going to be unpacking some deeper dive stuff, and I knew that because my journey was that, and that was just everything that I was feeling and everything in my being was saying this is not surface level work. This is us deep diving, and that has to be safe. I'm all about
Right.
safety as a human who, you know, just doesn't always, I didn't used to feel safe ever, not in my
Right.
body, not in a room. So it's just a key piece. And, you know, I just think to be able to pull from various modalities, but whole picture, whole picture, that's a big picture in the therapy side of things.
Hmm.
And that's a really big picture in the spiritual side of things as well. And
Right.
spiritual, whether it means highest self, whether it means ancestors, whether it means religion, like whatever that means to you, like, I don't care about that. Kind of like, I don't care what you call the therapies. I just want to know
Hmm.
which ones resonate with you.
Yeah.
You know, does this call to you? Are you getting a yes or a no? And then you get into the tricky piece of, is that no avoidance? Or is that no, really, it's not for you? And
Yeah.
the discernment to discover all that, I believe it comes when we blend everything together and really are willing to look as a collective, as a community, as a whole. Because I think if you just sit and do it alone without another human in the room, there's no one there to call bullshit when you're being when you're bullshit, you know? So I just think to have those like People use the term mirrors. People use the term, just like somebody who you can bounce ideas off of. I don't really care what we call it. I just think
Right.
when we do that deep work, it gets really confusing really fast. And to have more than one modality in a room or in a space, that's half the reason for the aligned and integrated virtual summit that you were talking about is a bunch of modalities in one space where you can explore and see what might work for you. And every
Right.
time you and I talk, we're like, yes, and yes, and what's missing? What are we feeling in this moment? What is stirring up in our physical bodies? Because it's like when you talked about ancestors and not necessarily needing to remember, I think there was a time where I really believed I needed to remember all the things and process them and logically internalize them and do all that stuff. And then I landed on that dang mat in Thailand and Master Pishat, Ajahn Pishat, worked on my body for over 2 hours. And I cried like I've never cried before. And when I got done, I felt a million times better. And I remember asking my teacher, well, how do I know what came up for me? How do I know how to process it? And she was like, Michelle, you already processed it. You don't have to recall the memories. Like it happened on that mat. Do you feel better? Yes.
Mhm.
Then why are you trying to label it and tuck it into boxes and bring it forward again when you literally just surrendered and released it in a room full of strangers, PS, with howling coming out of you because you were crying in a weird way? She didn't say that. I'm saying that. I'm claiming that. That was my truth. And I was like, how am I doing this publicly? I don't get it. But it was uncontrollable. It was time. And
Yeah.
the alchemy of the room was right. And so I think you and I talk about this a lot about how can we meet the whole person? How can we find the alchemy? And I don't mean we like you and I are these magical, magicians who like have the answer for everyone. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how do we create a more open, whole environments for healing,
Yeah.
where we can look at mind, body, spirit. And where you don't like, and I say you, I'm talking about me, where I don't feel like I have to stifle myself because I didn't say I was going to do something other than X. Like I used to be a Reiki practitioner. I mean, I still am, but I teach it. And then if I do Reiki, it's more like a free bonus. It just comes in and okay, we're going there if you're open to it. But, you know, do I have to stay only in the lane of energy healing? Or if I also have skills within the yoga path or the, healing path or the trauma path or the inner child path,
Mhm.
can I braid all that together?
Right.
Or do we have to stay in one place? And I did the one, I'm doing this right now. I'm doing that right now. I'm doing this right now. And that it just eventually I was like, well, this is like an energy drain for me. It doesn't feel aligned or right anymore. And that's when I braided everything together. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm supposed to just show up as me, like all of me together.
Right.
And that's how we're going to work together. But I wonder in the world of therapy, I'm guessing you have probably more like, I don't know, I don't want to say restrictions, maybe
But kind of, because I
guidelines
mean,
around
you
it.
have to, yeah, there's more guidelines. Like, I mean, you have to diagnose people. You have to, like, if you want insurance to pay, you have to give them a diagnosis, which I really struggle with. And thankfully, I'm at an agency where we, we talk about it with our clients and we say, like, just because we're giving you this diagnosis, we're not like, it doesn't define you. It doesn't, um, like, it's, it's not who you are. It's a thing that, you have these symptoms and you meet this criteria. And like, I don't know, like I hate the pathologizing piece of it because I feel like it gives, I don't know, it's just like it gives people this thing of like, okay, well, I guess that's all I am when it's not. And um, it's one of those things that you have to do. And so it's really about like, who is the person? Like, who are they? What
Yeah.
matters to them? And, that's where like language really is important when you're writing, like the clinical piece of things. It's using, non-pathologizing language and things like that so that it's not, I guess so it doesn't define people. You know what I mean? Like, it, I feel like so often you hear like, oh, like, yeah, I'm depressed or I have anxiety or, you know, whatever their diagnosis is, they're always like that they say that, and it's almost like it's an identity and wanting to really help people see that that's not who they are, that there's so much more to them and in them, and they have, all these things inside of them already, and how do you bring those forward, and how do you, help them really, I guess, find their identity and find who they are within themselves.
Yeah. Well, and when you talked about like the pathology or the diagnosis or the labels, even if you just want to simplify it all the
Hmm.
way down to a label, I think it's like, okay, so it can be data, and all that data might be true for you to fit quote unquote this label, but really, aren't we just talking about challenges? And I'm not trying to
Hmm.
minimalize it, but
No,
yeah,
yeah, because it's like, because like I hate the word triggers. Like I hate the word triggers, and it's just like, okay, it's such a like, oh, I'm being triggered, um, and that's just like my personal thing. But it's like more of like, what are you reacting to? Like, is what is it in you that is making you react? Like, there's something that's, you know, like I don't really know what I'm trying to say. Sorry, but like it's more of like I feel like trigger has such a negative
yeah,
connotation, but it's like when something happens, like you're having a reaction for a reason. Can we look at what is that reaction? Like, you know, what is it, exploring that and trying to figure out like what it is and where it comes from so that you can change how you react to
yeah, almost
whatever
like
is.
how
Yeah,
do you want to respond to the reaction?
right.
And you're right. I don't love the word trigger either. I think the word trigger and trauma, both those words they've almost gotten to a place in our culture where they come with guilt and shame automatically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, wait,
Hmm.
what? Why are we doing this? And I always go to the place of if I'm reactive, I there's something there for me to look at, and I want to look at that because I mean, that used to be how I showed up all the time. And now I'm like, well, how do I want to respond to this? Like, how do I want to
Hmm.
show up? What's here for me? What can I learn from this? And what is still here that is making me uncomfortable, that is super challenging for me, that I might want to explore with support, you know?
Right.
And I think that's a different energy and a different perspective than I'm being triggered and there's nothing I can do about it. Or,
Right.
nothing can stop this or comfort this or calm this. It's like, but what if you can diffuse that and make it more neutral and then go from there?
Right.
Yeah. I think the whole picture thing is such a huge, important piece. And I think you and I could talk forever. Like, this is like, we both only have about a half hour today, and we're already almost to the end of that. And I'm like, holy cow, this went fast. You
Yeah.
know, I feel like more conversations about this would be amazing and interesting. And I would love to hear any questions or comments or like feedback the listeners have around what might be helpful. Because you and I have talked about this enough to the point where, like, how do we get this message out there, but also like, is there some way that there's something like those missing pieces that we keep talking about it? Can we find them? Can we
Yeah.
can we create a new, well, maybe it's not new. There's nothing new under the sun, really. But like, I mean, there is because it's unique, because it's your own, it's us. Do you know what I mean? But is there
Yeah.
some way we can help on a more global scale to just really go
Hmm.
big, where there's a new understanding or just a new way, a new perspective on what are the tools and resources to create that space, that alchemy, that invitation to see things in a new and different way that like supports the individual as a whole. And I
Right.
think that's the part. It's like, because I have both, right? It's like we're individuals and we all have our own life experiences that create whatever alchemy we might need to foster healing in any given moment. And I believe that's unique to everyone, but I believe there's structures and foundations and like steps that can be more universal, and then how we thread into that becomes your own unique whole picture, whole person
Hmm. And there's also like
healing
the
path.
collective healing too, of like, I
A
mean, you can get into
100%.
epigenetics and, the generational trauma and the collective trauma, which is all of it. Like it's all kind of intertwined. And how do you like, because everybody has it, everybody has things from their past that they may not even know, but that live in their DNA that are,
Yes.
generations have been passed down. And like, how do you understand that? How do you even begin to explore that and kind of figure that out. So yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like it's a very layered and complicated picture.
it
But yeah,
is.
like that's like, yeah, you have to look at all those pieces. And how do you do that if you don't, if you're only doing one thing, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. I love this conversation. I would love to have more conversations. I would love to have a conversation off the mic about just like to have a brainstorm session of what are we really talking about here? I mean, I think we're being
Yeah,
clear about what we're talking about, but also like what's here within our skill sets that could be really useful and helpful because the more ease and healing we can bring in for I'm just gonna say like humans that are really struggling, you know. I'm really passionate about that because I struggled for a really long time.
right.
And so it means something to me to find ways out of that struggle,
Yeah,
like I want off the struggle bus. And I'm off the struggle
yeah,
bus. I mean, I'm not saying always and forever, but like,
right.
I used to live there and just my own angst and struggle and pain and confusion and despair even. I make it sound so dismal, but I mean, if I reflect back and think about how I am now and how I was then, I was dismal. I wasn't okay.
Right.
I wasn't okay for a
Yeah,
really long time.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And looking at like how does hope fit? Because I do think like it is kind of like this, like we come in with this, like, okay, there's something wrong with me, I'm broken or whatever. And I don't believe that that is the case. Like you're not broken, you're not damaged. And so like how do we help, how do we have hope fit into it and
yeah.
like have that, you know, be at the center versus like let's fix what's supposedly wrong with you when there's actually not
Right.
anything wrong with you.
Yeah, that whole broken thing. Like I'm
Yeah.
all about never broken, but I'm also all about we're never healed. Like there's always more
Yeah,
to
there's
do.
always
But
stuff
I'm
to
also
do.
a believer that we're always whole. There's always hope.
Yeah.
We are always whole, but we're never broken. And I felt broken for a really long time. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, why am I so broken? What's wrong with me? And it's like even that phrase and that story, like how quickly and easily that flows out of my mouth, like just boom right back into that time. I don't believe it anymore, but at that time I really did. And I just thought, how do we fix me? I don't get it. And
Right.
it's like, well, that's a complicated question because it's not accurate for one.
Right.
And for two, you know what it's exploration and in like it's being
Yeah, it's
inquisitive
exploring,
about
it's
things.
being curious about things and really like,
Yeah.
yeah, just not, I don't know, like just being really curious and exploring and looking at it from all different perspectives and not like there's not only one way, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like I feel like you and I are planting a seed for more conversation about this off the mic. And then I feel like, I don't know, for some reason, I'm feeling like the next time we record about this particular thing, we might have actual, like, not just hypothesis, but a little more clarity in what might that structure look like? What might that
Yeah.
scaffolding look like? What might that foundation be? And how can we create, I don't know what the words I'm looking for here, but like more like okayness to blend modalities together,
Hmm. Yeah.
because I think I mean I used to do just Thai massage and that was powerful and had a big huge impact. And it wasn't the only thing.
Right.
There's always
Yeah.
something more that we need. And I'm not saying that you and I are gonna find the perfect thing that's gonna heal all the things, but what if we just start blending more and more together? Not to water things down, but to amplify what's
Right.
possible and the
And to give
healing
people
within it.
options and to
Yes.
say like, maybe, you could, this is, something else that you could try that's outside the box or like versus just like thinking everyone's like, again, fits into those boxes. If you have this diagnosis, this intervention is going to work because I feel like that's not necessarily how it works. And I'm sure people in my field would argue with me about that. But I feel like, again, it's not, we don't fit into a box. There's so many layers, there's so many pieces, and it's one thing isn't going to I guess, make you whole, if
solve
that's
all
what
of
you're
it.
looking
Yeah.
for. Yeah, it's not going to
Yeah.
solve everything, fix
You're
everything, or whatever
you're
your work language is.
yeah, you're starting whole. Well, and even when you were saying that about like, this is the label that we're talking about, and then this is the structure to heal it. And I
Mhm.
don't remember specifically this happening to me, but I get a real strong visceral response in my body when you say that because I'm like, oh, great. So if it doesn't work for me, that means I'm doing it wrong and it's
Right.
impossible for me to heal. I just
Yeah.
get like, I mean, it's a strong visceral response. So it's like I don't have a vivid memory or even can't even recall when that might have happened for me, but clearly it creates a response in my physical body and like I just want to go, oh, that's so woo. And then there's like an anger that happens there. I'm like, is that
I think
epigenetics?
there's a
Is that
lot of
ancestral?
like,
Is that me? I don't know, but it's like, yeah,
yeah,
screw you if you tell me there's only one way for me to heal and it has to be your way. Because I
right.
need to find my way and I need support and help in that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm most passionate about is like people telling you you're doing it wrong. It's like, how do they know if they haven't asked you a damn question?
Right.
Because they put you into a box that wasn't yours. Like, it frustrates the heck out of me.
Yeah. Could go on for a very long time about
Yeah, I know, right?
that.
Part two. Part two. I feel like when we do podcasts together, it's part two. Yeah. I don't know. I would love to hear listeners' feedback too on what we're talking
Yeah.
about and where they land and
Hmm.
what they might want to hear more about or explore more because
Yeah.
it feels really important and it feels really powerful.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I've like just as I've done my own healing and as like I do this work, it's as a therapist, it's like learning what's, you know, what doesn't fit, what does fit, and that it's always different depending on the day, depending on the client. Like there's so many different factors and being just open to um exploring different things and not being stuck in like, okay, like if this is what's going on, this is how it's going to be fixed because that's not how it is. That's not how I feel like we even are as humans. So,
Right. Well, and I want to be really clear. Like, I'm not poo-pooing any of these modalities as a standalone. I'm simply saying, I think sometimes one of the biggest missing pieces in when we really deep dive into the healing work is I think it's to be curious
mhm,
because I think we as practitioners have this expectation of like, well, it's worked before or it's worked for most everyone else, so why isn't it working this time? And
right.
and we take that as a doing it wrong or broken or needs to be fixed, and it's like, but what if that's not the case? What if so I'm trying to be really clear and it's not really working, but I'm just really clear about I'm not poo-pooing any modality as a standalone. I'm simply saying, can we be inquisitive and curious and maybe not quite so quick to say this isn't working, so it's wrong. And maybe
Yeah.
more like, what if there's something else that we could add to
Mhm,
it or thread in or
right.
blend that would bring maybe that whole picture? Because if we're whole but we only get a piece of what our wholeness needs, like something's missing. So
Yeah.
let's find what's missing.
Right.
And I think coming it from this place of compassion and curiosity is so much more kind and loving than this is wrong. That tool didn't work as it should have,
Right.
which just
Yeah.
brings in like this whole realm of, I don't know, frustration maybe. I don't know, pick your thing.
Yeah.
A lot of things. It's
It's a
different
lot
for
of different
everyone.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful conversation. I think it's an interesting conversation. And I think you and I have only touched the surface of where this could go, where this might go, and what's here that's truly helpful
Yeah.
in the world of healing, all kinds of healing.
Right.
Not even labeling the healing itself, but just as a generic
Just
whole picture, holistic healing, what that might look like. So I don't know. You have anything else you want to add?
yeah, no, I'd love to continue the conversation and I think it's an important conversation to have. I think yeah, I just think the whole person healing is so important and how do we get there and um, yeah, that's kind of where I've just been landing and feeling like lately is like you can't feel just pieces of yourself.
Yeah.
You have to look at the whole picture.
Yeah. That's funny that you said that phrase. That's a phrase that's been coming in for me a lot. Whole picture, pick your thing, right? Whole picture
Mhm.
parenting, whole picture relationships, whole picture
Yeah.
communication, whole picture community, whole picture healing, all of that. Like, I think sometimes we get so tunnel visioned and hyper focused into things that we forget to zoom out, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
And sometimes the zoom out is the thing that would be the most helpful.
Yeah.
But I think we tell ourselves zooming in is what's needed, and it's not always true.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that for sure.
Beautiful. Oh, I love it. All right. I hope people comment and let us know what they might find helpful or be curious about within what we just talked about. And I do look forward to more conversations like this, and we'll see. But it
Yeah.
feels like a refreshing conversation to me. It's things I've been chewing on and pondering for a while in my own healing journey, and um,
Yeah.
it's just kind of where you and I have gone in conversations and in doing the work that we do. And I find it delightful and refreshing and exciting. And I am curious about it.
Yeah. I am too. That's kind of why keep landing. I keep coming back to it. It's like, okay, they're like, I mean, when I first started with you, it's like, I was like, something's missing. I don't know what that is, but I need to try something different. And here we are. So,
Yeah, here we are. Here we are recording podcasts about it.
yes, did not think I would be doing that, but
I know, right? I didn't think I would be doing podcasts either, but here I am 3 years later, or in my third season, which is, I mean, every season for this podcast is a year. So go figure. I don't know. Let's just drop in and
here it goes.
listen. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for having these
Yeah.
conversations, and we'll do it again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.